You ever get the feeling like you think you know the worst of humanity? Well, this case, the one we're going to really dig into today, the Mazan case, this one's going to challenge that.
Yeah.
It's really disturbing.
Yeah, very much so.
And it's like gripped all of France.
Absolutely.
It makes you like look into this really dark part of human behavior and wonder, how could this happen? How could someone seemingly normal become, well, a monster?
Yeah, it's a question that lingers with you long after you've learned about the details. I think what makes the Mazan case so disturbing is the sheer length of time that it went on undetected.
Right.
You know, for over a decade, a woman named Giselle Pelicot, she was drugged and raped repeatedly.
God.
And it gets worse. These men were brought into her own home.
No.
Orchestrated by her husband.
Her husband.
Dominique Pelicot.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot to go on with this case, right?
Oh, we do.
News reports, court testimonies, psychological evaluations, and it's like they all paint this horrifying picture
Absolutely.
of what was going on in this seemingly ordinary home. Over 80 men identified. Can you imagine that?
It's staggering.
And 51 facing charges.
At least.
What's really crazy is that all of this came to light because Giselle, she decided to waive her anonymity
I know.
and demand a public trial.
Incredibly brave.
She basically turned her nightmare
Yeah.
into like a national reckoning on sexual violence.
Yeah, her courage is extraordinary. It really is. And it's ignited a public debate in France.
Huge debate, right?
Huge.
About consent, how society views rape.
And this insidious form of assault, you know,
Yeah.
drug-facilitated rape.
It's a case that's forced France to confront some very uncomfortable truths.
It really has.
So let's start with Dominique Pelicot.
Okay.
He confessed, right?
He did. He confessed to the crimes.
And what did he say?
It was chilling. He stood in court and declared, I am a rapist, just like the others in this courtroom. But even with this admission, you know, even with that, his statements are just full of contradictions.
Okay, how so?
Well, on one hand, he claims to have deeply loved his wife, but for years he systematically drugged and exploited her.
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, he turned their home into like a stage for his own horrific desires.
We've seen cases like this before, haven't we?
Oh, absolutely. This idea that the perpetrator feels some warped sense of love or even consent from their victim.
Right.
It's a classic manipulation tactic,
Yeah.
trying to shift responsibility, minimize the horror of their actions.
So, Dominique, he also said that he was a sex addict
Right. He did, yeah.
and suggested he was relieved when he was caught,
Yeah.
like he was trapped.
As if he couldn't escape the cycle he was in.
Mm.
But then, you know, you delve deeper into the details and it's a far more sinister picture emerges.
Yeah, because it wasn't just the drugging and the assaults, was it?
No.
Dominique, he filmed every single rape.
Every single one.
So what was his motive?
Well, his explanation is pretty straightforward.
What did he say?
Pleasure, he called it.
God.
And insurance.
Insurance.
The pleasure aspect is obvious, but that insurance part, that's what's really unsettling.
Yeah, why insurance?
It points to a level of premeditation,
Right.
a desire to not just commit these acts, but to document them, to hold on to them.
Like trophies.
Yeah, these perverse trophies of his control.
It's hard to even wrap your head around that.
It is.
I mean, he created this facade
Yes.
of a normal life, a loving marriage.
But behind closed doors.
This was happening.
Yeah.
And Giselle, I mean, she was living this nightmare.
Completely unaware.
To live for years with someone
Share your life, your intimacy.
and then to find out.
They were capable of such calculated cruelty.
It's almost too much to comprehend.
It is.
But Giselle, she showed incredible strength.
She did.
Her decision to come forward,
Yes.
to demand a public trial, remarkable.
Her courage in reclaiming her narrative, refusing to be silenced, is truly inspiring.
She chose not to hide behind anonymity,
No!
use her real name.
She wanted to stand as a symbol for other victims.
Yes, the victims suffering in silence.
Exactly.
There's this quote from her courtroom testimony
Oh, yes.
that really stuck with me. She said, I lived for 50 years with a man I never suspected for a single moment.
It's powerful.
Because it's a reminder, isn't it,
It is.
that these perpetrators, they hide in plain sight
They do. Often wearing these masks of normalcy.
while harboring these dark secrets.
And that's one of the most disturbing aspects of this case, you know?
What's that?
The ordinariness of it all.
The Pelicots.
An average couple living an average life. No red flags, no obvious signs of abuse.
At least not to the outside world.
Right.
And this goes way beyond just Dominique and Giselle, doesn't it?
It does, yes.
It implicates dozens of other men.
Men who willingly participated.
The trial, it must have been incredibly tense.
Oh, absolutely. The courtroom became this crucible of confrontation.
Not just between Dominique and Giselle.
But between Dominique and his own children.
Oh, wow.
His daughter, Caroline, confronted her father directly in court.
Really?
Accused him of abusing her as well.
Another layer of betrayal.
It is.
What did she say? What did Caroline allege?
She claims to have been drugged and photographed by her father.
Oh, my God.
Another potential victim hidden within the family.
And what did Dominique say?
He denies these accusations, of course.
What?
But photographs of Caroline in her underwear were discovered on his computer.
Adding another chilling layer to this already complex case.
It does.
This family dynamic.
Heartbreaking.
The ripple effect of Dominique's actions.
It's almost too much to grasp.
But what about the other men involved? What are their defenses?
Well, their defenses are, as varied as the men themselves.
Okay.
Some claim they were manipulated, by Dominique.
Okay.
Painting themselves as like unwitting pawns in his game.
Right.
Saying they were led to believe that Giselle was a willing participant.
Oh, come on.
Or that they were unaware that she was unconscious.
But how could they not have known?
Right.
I mean, the drugging, the number of men involved.
It does make you question their claims of ignorance.
For sure.
Especially when you consider the insurance aspect of the filming.
Yeah.
I mean, Dominique wasn't exactly trying to hide what he was doing.
No, definitely not.
And, the trial has revealed a real spectrum of remorse among the accused.
So some are admitting guilt.
Some have, expressing genuine regret for their actions, acknowledging the harm they inflicted.
And others.
Others remain defiant, clinging to their denials.
Showing no remorse.
Very little empathy for Giselle or her family.
It's a reminder that accountability, it's not a one-size-fits-all concept.
Definitely not.
Some people can confront their wrongdoing.
While others stay entrenched in self-preservation.
Even when faced with overwhelming evidence.
Exactly. And that brings us to one of the most disturbing questions this case raises.
What's that?
How could seemingly ordinary people, with families, jobs, seemingly normal lives, be complicit in such horrific acts?
Yeah, it really shatters that misconception, doesn't it?
It does.
That perpetrators of sexual violence fit a specific profile.
Right.
That they're these, easily identifiable monsters.
Lurking in the shadows.
This case makes us confront the truth.
Which is?
That this darkness can reside within anyone.
Even those we perceive as normal.
Exactly.
The Mazan case, it peels back the layers of our societal assumptions.
Oh, yeah.
It reveals a chilling truth about human nature.
The capacity for both good and evil.
And it forces us to question our own judgments, our own bias.
To acknowledge that the line between perpetrator and bystander
can be disturbingly thin.
Speaking of bystanders, this case has sparked a huge reaction in France, hasn't it?
It has. It's been front page news.
Yeah.
Protests across the country demanding justice for Giselle.
Calling for systemic change.
It's become a lightning rod for a national conversation.
About?
Sexual violence, consent, the legal system.
The protests are a testament to Giselle's courage.
Absolutely.
To her willingness to speak out and demand accountability.
In her voice, it's resonated with so many people.
Particularly women.
Women who have experienced similar traumas, often in silence.
Over 400 artists and organizations have signed a petition.
Oh.
Demanding action from the government to address violence against women.
It's a clear sign that this case has become something much bigger
than just a criminal trial.
Absolutely. It's a catalyst for social change.
It's a rallying cry.
For greater awareness, better support for survivors, a more robust legal framework.
To really address the complexities of sexual violence.
Especially drug-facilitated assault.
The public outcry is a testament to the power of one person's voice.
One voice can ignite a movement.
It really feels like this trial has become a symbol of something much greater than the horrific details of the case itself.
It's exposed this deep well of anger and frustration, a yearning for a society that truly values women's safety and bodily autonomy.
The Mazan case? It's become this focal point.
For all these issues surrounding gender inequality, power imbalances,
and how those imbalances are exploited.
It's brought to light this often hidden issue.
Drug-facilitated sexual assault.
A crime that's notoriously difficult to prove.
And prosecute.
Leaving victims feeling powerless.
And unheard.
Giselle's case has lifted the veil on this form of abuse,
Revealing its prevalence.
highlighting the challenges faced by survivors.
So many victims, they may not even be aware of what happened to them.
Right, attributing their fragmented memories.
And physical symptoms to other causes.
It makes reporting and seeking justice that much harder.
It's scary to think that the true scope of this problem
Is likely far greater than we realize,
so many cases go unreported.
leaving perpetrators free to continue their abuse.
That's why education is so important.
Isn't it?
Raising awareness about the signs of drug-facilitated assault
Empowering individuals to protect themselves?
and support one another,
We need to create a culture where victims feel safe to come forward
knowing they will be believed.
and supported, not silenced or shamed.
What about the perpetrators in this case?
Yeah.
What kind of legal consequences are they facing?
Well, Dominique Pelicot, as the mastermind, faces the most serious charges.
Okay.
He's admitted to drugging and raping his wife. He faces multiple counts of rape and sexual assault.
What kind of sentence could he get?
The potential sentences are significant, reflecting the gravity of his actions.
And the other men?
The ones who participated at his behest.
Yeah.
They're facing serious charges too, ranging from rape to sexual assault with aggravating circumstances. The severity of their sentences, it'll likely depend on their level of involvement, their willingness to take responsibility.
And the evidence presented.
Right.
This must be a tough case for the justice system.
It is.
I mean, how do you weigh the culpability of those who claim they were manipulated or deceived?
While still ensuring justice for the victim.
It's a difficult balance.
A complex legal and ethical dilemma.
One that the court will have to grapple with as the trial continues.
And the issue of consent.
Especially in cases involving drugs or alcohol.
It's a thorny one.
Determining awareness and volition when someone is incapacitated.
Or under the influence.
It's a question that goes way beyond this case.
It forces us as a society to re-examine our understanding of consent.
To consider the gray areas.
The complexities that exist in real-life situations.
We need to move beyond these simplistic notions of yes and no.
We do.
And acknowledge the multifaceted nature of consent.
Creating a culture where respect, communication, and genuine mutual understanding
Or paramount.
in any sexual interaction.
This Mazan case has opened up so many questions.
It's a Pandora's box.
It makes us confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves, about society.
About the systems designed to protect us.
It's heavy stuff.
It is.
And it feels like we've only just scratched the surface.
We need to keep talking about this.
Let this conversation evolve.
As we learn more about the case and its implications.
Good point. This feels like a good place to pause.
Okay.
We'll delve deeper into these questions in part 3. So we spent the last 2 parts really unpacking this Mazan case.
Yeah.
This deeply disturbing story about the abuse of Giselle Pelicot.
By her husband, Dominique.
Who drugged her for over a decade.
And orchestrated, the participation of all these men in her assault.
This case has really shaken France, hasn't it?
It has.
It's forced a national conversation about sexual violence.
And its prevalence in society.
It's one of those cases that's hard to shake.
It really is.
It's a reminder, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of the darkness that exists.
Within seemingly ordinary people.
And how people in positions of trust
can inflict so much harm.
We talked about Dominique's motivation.
The psychological factors.
That unsettling insurance aspect of the filming.
We also looked at the defenses of the men involved.
Yeah. The varying levels of remorse.
How complicated it is to figure out culpability when there's so much manipulation.
And deception.
Right.
We also touched on the public outcry.
The protests.
The broader social implications.
The Mazan trial has become a symbol.
Oof.
Deep-seated anger and frustration.
About?
The pervasiveness of sexual violence.
And?
The systemic failure.
Failures that allow it to continue.
Right.
We've also talked about the issue of drug-facilitated sexual assault.
Which, as we said, often goes unreported and unpunished.
Leaving victims feeling isolated.
And silenced.
Giselle's case shows how important it is to speak out.
To break the silence.
And demand accountability.
But it raises some tough questions, too.
Like?
How do we address a problem like this?
As insidious and widespread as drug-facilitated assault.
What can we actually do to protect ourselves and each other?
It feels overwhelming, doesn't it?
It can.
Like, where do we even begin?
Well, I think education is key.
Okay.
We need to raise awareness.
Wow.
The dangers of drug-facilitated assault.
Educate ourselves about the signs, the symptoms.
Exactly. So people can take steps to protect themselves.
So being aware of our surroundings.
Watching our drinks.
Being careful about who we trust.
Especially in social situations where there's alcohol or drugs,
Right. And what if you think someone's been drugged?
or assaulted,
Yeah.
the most important thing is to believe them.
Listen to their experience without judgment
Let them know they're not alone.
and encourage them to seek medical attention.
To deal with any physical effects of the drug,
Nin.
to collect evidence in case they want to report the assault.
Reporting can be hard for some survivors, though, right?
It is. It's a very personal decision.
What should they consider?
There's no right or wrong answer.
Okay.
Some survivors, reporting helps them regain a sense of control.
Yeah.
Others, they prefer to focus on healing, moving forward.
Without involving the legal system.
Exactly.
What if someone doesn't want to report?
Or even if they do.
What resources are out there?
Oh, there are a number of organizations that are dedicated to supporting survivors of sexual assault.
What do they offer?
They offer counseling, support groups,
Okay.
advocacy services, legal guidance.
These resources, they can be so important,
They can be a lifeline.
helping survivors navigate the challenges they face.
Emotional, physical, and legal challenges.
This case has also caused a lot of debate in France, hasn't it?
It has.
About how consent is defined legally.
Some argue that the laws, as they aren't enough.
Don't sufficiently protect victims of drug-facilitated assault.
Exactly. The fact that there's no explicit requirement for clear and unambiguous consent in the definition of rape.
It creates a gray area.
It does, and it can be hard to prosecute cases like this.
So there's a push to reform the law,
There is.
to make it clear that any sexual act without explicit consent is a crime.
Regardless of whether drugs or alcohol are involved.
So shift the focus away from the victim
Yes.
and their actions, their level of resistance,
And place the responsibility squarely on the perpetrator.
to get clear consent.
Affirmative consent.
This legal debate, it goes hand in hand with a cultural shift that needs to happen, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
We need to move away from victim blaming
And towards a deeper understanding of consent.
and healthy boundaries.
Exact.
So challenging those ingrained societal norms
Norms that normalize sexual violence.
or minimize its impact.
And that starts with education,
Having open dialogues
being willing to listen.
and believe survivors.
The Mazan case, as awful as it is, has made us confront some difficult truths.
About ourselves, about our society.
And about the systems that are supposed to protect us.
It's been a real eye-opener.
It has.
A reminder that we can't just be passive bystanders
We all have a role to play.
in challenging harmful attitudes,
Supporting survivors.
advocating for change.
Change in the system.
This deep dive, it's been heavy,
It has.
eye-opening.
And unsettling at times.
But it's also shown us how important awareness is
Education.
and taking action.
The Mazan case is a tragedy, but it could be a catalyst for change.
It's up to each of us to decide how we'll respond.
How we'll help create a safer world.
A more just world.
A more equitable world.
So, for our listener, as we wrap up, what's the most important question this case raises?
I think the most crucial question is this. What will you do
How will you use what you've learned?
to make a difference?
In your life, in your community?
The answer will be different for everyone.
But the responsibility to create a world free from sexual violence.
That belongs to all of us.
And on that note, we end our deep dive into the Mazan case.
A case that will undoubtedly stay with us.
And hopefully inspire meaningful change.